Welcome to the Off Central Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Kirk. I am joined with the Brit from Baltimore. Bringing that back. We're bringing it back, John.
If you've been with us a while, that one will ring.
Jonathan Prothero is in the house with us, and we were talking about the miracles of Jesus. We started a new series at Central on that, and again, going back to the beginning of the year, just believing God for some incredible miracles to take place within our community, and we're seeing some awesome things happen, and not without challenges, of course, too. You know, when anytime you step into a statement that this is a year of miracles. How many of us know you need a need before you have to have a miracle? Yeah. And so there's been quite a few needs in there, and quite a few hurdles, and quite a few difficulties happening. You know, and it's not without a battle for sure.
Yeah.
But we wanted to do a series on the miracles of Jesus and just continue to build our community's faith in it. So
you made the point early in the year that everyone wants the miracle.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to be in a position where they need the miracle.
Nobody wants to be in the need moment. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great to have healing. Nobody wants to be sick.
Nobody wants. That's right.
Or whatever it is.
Everybody wants to get to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. Yeah. Right.
That would be nice.
It's just kind of the same.
Take me. Just up the ladder.
Yeah. It's just kind of that. Yeah. It's if you know, you know. If you're listening right now.
Yeah. Exactly. But we're diving into a new series on the miracles of Jesus.
That's right.
And you started with, started at the beginning, Jesus' first recorded miracle, at least. It seems like, we could talk about whether it's his actual first miracle or just recorded.
Yeah,
but,
it's just kind of,
I think if you're a Christian, even if you're not a Christian, you've never been to church, most people are going to be familiar with like one of the most iconic sort of miracles of Jesus, turning the water into wine. Yeah. Even if you're completely unchurched, you probably heard of that.
That's right.
It's one of these very talked about miracles.
Yeah.
We don't know. People don't necessarily know all the ones recorded, but this is a big one that we kind of kicked it off with.
And we kind of dialed in on it wasn't disease, but it was surrounded with disappointment. And I shared this past week about a wedding that I did that the photographer didn't show up, and the caterer didn't have enough food, and I just felt so bad for this family, for this couple. And it was just heartbreaking to be, on such a glorious, wonderful day. You have this total disappointment because they probably couldn't enjoy their moment because of thinking of not only the photographer but also, not everybody gets food that day. Around the table.
It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Oh, I just was crushed.
It really links well to even some of the emotions that Jesus or Mary is feeling at the time, like save them from this embarrassment, like rescue me here.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, because somebody messed up, right? At Jesus' wedding, not his wedding, but the wedding he was at.
Right, somebody didn't plan correctly. Somebody just didn't know the numbers that were showing up, or they were partying too hard. Yeah, since it was day 3.
I'm not familiar. With weddings, 2,000 years ago, was it kind of like an open affair, or is it like invite only? I'm actually not even sure.
I'm not sure
it's a community
either.
thing.
I feel like it was a community thing too. Yeah,
right. So they just had everyone turn
I just know Jesus and his mom was there. Yeah, and his disciples So, it was obviously connected somehow to them.
Sure.
Not all scholars know who that was or who the wedding was for, or they speculate.
Yeah, I've seen some speculation that it may have been linked to his extended family or something like that.
I even heard John. Somebody said John. I was like, oh, really? He was super young, but whatever.
People make this stuff up.
They do. I think so.
Just to write a book and sell it. Sorry for whoever said that.
Sorry for whoever or wrote a book about it. Sorry about that.
I'm sure you have good arguments.
I'm sure it was good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it was connected somehow. Obviously, they're all there, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, made a point at telling her son about it.
Right.
Now, again, like Pastor Jonathan just said, we don't know if this was his first miracle. We just think that probably not. This was the first one just because of what Jesus said.
Well,
my time has not yet come.
My time has not yet come. But what's interesting is, why would she have the expectation that Jesus could do that?
I don't know. Maybe he's healing little birds that fell out of the nest when he was little. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I mean. Like time has not yet come. Yeah. Could that have mean for me to do something public or open? Yeah. But he's performed. Sorry, hitting my mic.
No, it's all right.
Getting excited.
No, you're so right about that. Yes, there's some expectation there.
Yeah. She seems to think that he can do this easily. Somehow Jesus can fix this.
I mean, she told him, listen, do whatever he tells you to
do. Woman, you made a good joke of that. Only Jesus could get away with calling his mum woman.
Only Jesus.
My dad always makes the joke because he has an Italian mum. Like, who are you calling woman? I tell you who your woman is. I'm your mother.
Woman. And it's how you read it, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's all how you read that text. Woman.
That's why you never settle arguments through text, because it's all how you read it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you never do that. That's the worst thing about texting, is you can't read the emotion behind it. Because you're assuming somebody's, so.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you read that, it is kind of like that way, and it probably wasn't that way.
I'm sure it wasn't. Yeah.
But it just sounds that way.
Exactly.
Especially in our culture today, you just don't use those terms.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it's such a great story. There's 100 things you could pull out of it.
There is, John.
And I'm sure you've done that over the years again and again.
And you have too. I know, yeah.
Yeah, but
we've heard some of the best with it too.
Yeah, I mean, there's great things. I love the compassion that Jesus has. It's not my time, but he's more compassionate about what the couple or the embarrassment or saving the skin of whoever's messed up.
Yeah.
He gets more compassionate about that.
Yeah.
Than the timing of his public ministry.
Absolutely.
And it comes back to this refrain that, Shane has brought up, but we talk about all the time. You've said it 1,000 times, that Jesus loves people more than the rules.
That's right.
The rule was, it's not yet my time, but the people, like, just saving them from that embarrassment and that humiliation publicly was more important to Jesus and his mother. And I love the grace of Jesus.
And that it is, and it's in the details and the small things too, that it shows us that it's not just about some kind of mountaintop disease that he's healing someone from leprosy, although he does later.
Right.
And there's 10 of them, I think, right? Yeah. Is there 10 of them?
Something like that.
Something like that, right? And so things that flesh is falling off the guy's arm, and all of a sudden he's healed, and so all that. It wasn't about that. It was really just about, like you just said, saving face for someone.
Yeah.
And the embarrassment, with the couple. And the families, because the families, it was a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah. I was really intrigued. You made a point on Sunday of saying, I wonder when it turned into wine.
Yeah, it just intrigues me.
It's an intriguing question, and I always think, imagine if you're the server, and you've just taken dirty ceremonial water,
right?
You fill it up, and now Jesus just tells you to do it, and so you just do it. And I'm trying to get in their head. Did they have an expectation that Jesus could do something miraculous as well? Were they just, hey, I'm just the servant, I'm just doing whatever the master tells me to do?
Right.
Like, where was their faith? Because they must have been petrified
how
handing the water to the master of ceremonies.
And who do they know? Did they know Jesus?
Exactly.
I mean, Jesus is fresh on the scene.
Yeah.
At
least for us,
at least in reading the text.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And we don't know the connection between who the servants were, what their kind of background was. So we have no idea about that part. But it's like Mary said, do whatever he tells you to do it.
Right.
And so Jesus tells them to fill those 6 water pots up to the brim that was used for ceremonial cleaning, which is so funny. We had baptism that day, which is,
it worked out.
It did work out. Yeah. It just was, and it was a off the cuff baptism that we had, right? And just with the mikvah and the cleansing, the water, the ceremonial, what that represents. And then, the 6 pots, which I think the number 6 is the number of man as well, right? In Hebrew. So was there something in that? You know what I'm saying?
I did a bit of research. The stuff that I saw, to me seemed a little vague.
A little over the top.
You could extract some stuff out of there. There's certainly some symbolism for sure that the writers are throwing in here. There's a few sort of insights and facts that I wrote down. Wine was not only a staple beverage, but also symbolized joy and abundance in Jewish culture. So making the transformation from water into wine is particularly significant. It's this announcement of joy and abundance that is coming.
So the Jewish proverb is right: where there's no wine, there's no joy.
Where there's no wine, which is great. I'm so glad that you read that out.
That is a brilliant Jewish proverb.
Yeah.
It literally, and I made sure everybody, and if you're listening right now, that's not in Proverbs, the book of Proverbs. That is a Jewish proverb.
A Jewish proverb.
I did not say it's in the Bible, okay, but it is a proverb, and so where there's no more wine, there's no more joy, and there is something significant about what you just said, though.
Yeah, wine
represents joy.
Again, take that as far as you want.
Sure.
But it also says, you were talking about the quantity. So it says that the quantity of wine produced in the miracle is described as approximately 180 gallons, emphasizing the abundance and generosity associated. So again, one of the clear themes seems to be abundance, above and beyond, and there's a ton of symbolism or symbology. I never know which is the right word to use. One of those two.
Symbolism. We'll just go
Symbolism.
with that.
I'll go with that one.
Let's go with that one.
There's a lot that you can pull out of it. And you unpacked this, and maybe just a couple of the insights, because you brought it back to the Red Sea and Moses, and I'll stop talking there.
Yeah, no. I remember Shane saying something one time, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, because I think he listens occasionally. So, and some of his followers too that are connected, because we have Shane on here so many times that I know a lot of you guys love Shane, and so do we. And as a matter of fact, he's coming back with us in May, and we're going to do some more podcasting with him. But I remember him talking about, I believe it's in the book of Exodus, and I could be wrong about that, John. Somebody can fact check me on it, but there is a river called Pishon that flows out of the Garden of Eden, and or what they called the Garden of Eden at that time. And so, and in it was what represents is Pishon. I believe it is there was like perfect gold at the bottom of this river, and from what I understand, if you take a very small portion of, because gold in its purest form, they say, is like almost incandescent. So if you take a perfect form of gold like that and put it in, just a little bit into a bunch of water, it would turn the water ruby red. It would it'd have a visual look of being ruby red. So the river that flows out of that place is a red rip. Like it's always pointing to what's to come.
Sure.
And it was just and I remember Shane talking about that. This is decades. This is probably 15, 20 years ago. He's talked about this, and then he always connects with the Red Sea and coming through that, and the blood over the doorpost, and it was always representing what is to come. And all through Scripture, you can go through the plagues, and the river turning red, blood with blood, and the river turning red with blood, and then the doorpost thing and the Red Sea, and it was always symbolic. And then Jesus's first miracle is turning water into wine. It's red water, and then eventually blood and water flows from his side, and it was always the connection between all of those things. So
I think it's important to understand that for the Jewish people, the Exodus is really the central narrative of their people. And so when you link,
and John,
Moses,
what we call Easter, they call Passover. For those who are listening and kind of don't.
And Passover is what you shared about, was this idea of the last plague, kill a lamb, put the blood on your doorposts, and the angel of death will pass by your house. And not come in, or and kill your first child born. So, but the idea of coming through the Red Sea, this idea of there's death and destruction, but then there's a miracle leading to the promised land, leading to a new kingdom, leading to freedom, salvation. So it's obvious, clear tie and link from the writers to make sure that the first gospel that gets recorded is making a point to say, hey, what happened in Exodus is about to happen again. Like there's going to be a freedom, there's going to be a miracle, there's going to be a setting free, there's going to be abundance, slavery will be done in the sense of, I mean, our slave drivers. It's not just,
right.
what happens from sin.
Life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what was in the physical with Pharaoh and the Egyptians is now
right.
in the spiritual through Jesus Christ. And so there's clear sort of linking imagery there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think I do believe, and again, the followers of Shane out there can correct me on this, but I believe it was a moment where even Shane talked about this too, where just salvation is here.
Yes,
he's letting everybody know, hey, this miracle, this is the start, but this is like salvation is here.
Yeah,
and it's all linked to that.
Yeah,
all the way through. So
beautiful picture.
Yeah.
You pulled out a couple of points. We kind of already touched on it a little bit when we when we talked about the servers. Mary just said, whatever he tells you to do it.
Yeah.
And you just talked about obedience. And when you hear that, maybe just unpack that. Sometimes we don't get to share everything that we write down and plan for our sermons. Like what was it about that you felt like was really important to talk about?
Well, I think if you want to see a miracle in your own personal life, you have to do what he's telling you to do and be obedient to that, even if it feels like ridiculous and maybe even mundane at times.
Right.
Sometimes it does feel that way, doesn't it? I mean, when we're following the Lord, it just feels like, I keep doing the same thing, but I'm not seeing any results. I'm not seeing any, because again, when I think of the servers going out to get the water, where were they going? How far was it?
Right.
Was it on the other side of town? I don't know. Nobody knows. It wasn't, they didn't have the systems we have. Went over to the spigot, turned the water on, and it comes out. They have to draw it from somewhere. So how long did that take to fill up all those water pots? And how low were those water pots? Nobody knows how low they were. Like all those things go through my mind, but there was a lot of work, a lot of mundane kind of just going about the business of, okay, we're doing this. We're doing what Jesus is telling us to do. Okay, we're doing it. And we're not seeing anything, but we're doing it anyway.
Right.
And we're dipping until they were filled to the brim, and then he told them to go and, dip whatever form that was, dip it in there and take it to. And when did that take place? Was the water turned into wine in the pots, or was it when they dipped it in and then walking it over and it turns, who knows? Nobody knows that. But I think sometimes it's just being obedient and being consistently obedient to doing what he's telling us to do. If somebody needs a miracle in their life, I think just you need to get with God and just listen to his voice. And just like you were talking about in the silence and solitude of things, and just hearing his voice in that, and in doing what he's telling you to do it. Even if it seems ridiculous, even if it seems uncomfortable, because I think there's moments in our life where he tells us to do things and it's just uncomfortable to do it. But it's in those moments is where, and even in the mundane is when we'll find the miracle for our life as well. It's walking in obedience. The outcome belongs to God. All he's asking me to do is walk in obedience in that. In that moment, and I think it's like anything you do, if you start a campus or you start a church, you do something outside of your comfort zone, but you're doing it because God told you to do it, or you feel prompted to do it. And even if it doesn't feel like it's coming together, you're still doing it, and you're consistently you're being obedient to what he's called you to do. And I think in that obedience, the outcome belongs to God. But he requires my obedience in this.
Yeah.
And so when I step into that moment, it's and again, I've faced it many times in my life where I'm doing something I feel like God's told me to do, and I'm doing it, but it doesn't seem like it's working. It doesn't seem like it's I'm even getting traction in it or something, but I'm going to consistently do it. I'm going to do it because he told me to do it. And I'm going to be obedient in that part, but the outcome eventually belongs to him. He's the one that causes it to grow.
Right. It's going back to those workers. If you give or take 180 odd gallons that you're drawing from a well. What's a bucket? 1 or 2 gallons?
Yeah, 1 or 2 gallons.
So 90 times minimum.
It's not like they pick those pots up, man, and fill them
but
up.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
To draw that up 90 times and then back down, and to bring the water, however, even if it's 100 yards from the back of the property to the front or whatever it is.
No.
I think a lot of people.
There's actually a wine store there now. Where Cana is. Did you see that? Have you seen that?
David.
Did he show you that?
He showed me a picture. He was there recently, which I thought was some of the best business marketing I've ever seen.
Unbelievable marketing.
Who's not buying wine from that?
Come on.
That's genius.
Gotta love those Jews, man.
They're savvy.
They are savvy.
Business savvy.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying here is people often shortchange themselves because they get to 50 gallons.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is ridiculous. I'm just drawing water. This isn't solving my problem.
Have you felt that way before?
Oh,
I have.
Every day.
Yeah, every day. Yeah, I know. No, seriously. Yeah.
Well, but in the obedience part, you're just thinking, this isn't even related. Like, what has this got to do with anything?
Right.
I can't remember if I made...
It's water. It's not wine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
How is this solving the problem? And you can see this is a lot of work. I'm getting frustrated. And so the amount of trust required and trust even in the face of not understanding or not knowing why you are doing this. That's the important thing. It always reminds me of Samuel when he is rebuking Saul and he says, does the Lord delight in sacrifice as much as he delights in obedience? Yeah. Because obedience is your greatest sacrifice. That's right. It always is. But yeah, the amount of frustration. But I think sometimes when we pray and we get still and quiet and we're asking God to solve a problem for us, or we're putting something before the Lord, and then we hear from him, and like you said, he'll speak to us and it feels like this is our problem, and then he tells us to do something
else
completely unrelated, like go say sorry to your wife, you were grumpy the other day.
That's right.
I'm like, but hold on, I need healing.
Yeah,
but I need you to sort this out. Like, I'm not prepared to give you this until you know what I mean. And it's amazing how often the act of obedience feels like it has nothing, it's not going to solve the issue, but in the process it does.
I feel like I've used this analogy before years ago, and it just hit me when you're talking about this. I feel like God will keep you in. It's funny, because it doesn't matter how long you've been with, quote unquote, saved or in the church. If you want to grow in any capacity with the Lord and in the power of His Spirit, even it requires obedience in our life. And I always feel like He will keep you in the kindergarten school of ministry until you learn it.
Right.
You'll be in there and you'll be 30 years old and your knees are all the way up against the desk because you're in there with kindergartners because you haven't learned obedience. And I just feel like that until you learn that part, you'll never continue to grow in faith. You'll never continue to grow in power, really, in your life until you learn obedience.
Yeah, it's just the hamster wheel, isn't it? God just keeps you in the hamster wheel.
He does. Yeah, and you look foolish because you're sitting there and you're like, why this desk doesn't fit me anymore?
Right.
I'm been in church for 30 years. Why hasn't my faith grown? Why hasn't it? Well,
and you're putting a lot of effort in. You're putting a lot of work in.
Right.
It's just in a completely wrong area.
In a wrong area, because back here is where He asks you to walk in that obedience, and maybe it's even just challenging you with tithing, with giving financially. There's moments in my life, man. I'll be vulnerable and honest with you guys right now. I mean, Pearl and I tithe. We give, we both. And yet, I just had to put out $13,000. Right?
Yeah, that hurts.
That hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does hurt. It does hurt, but it doesn't negate the obedience. And how I've looked at it and how Pearl and I have looked at it is, well, you know what? We had the money sitting there because we've been obedient in this part of our life. We have the money sitting there to pay for whatever that was that we had to shell out $13,000 for, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a part of it. And part of that is just the discipline of that and being obedient back here with what God has given me to steward. He always asking me to do is, hey, you can have the 90, just give me 10, right? And it's a faith walk, it's a trust. And so I'm trusting God back here so I can so today I can have the provision to do X,
Yes.
what's required of me.
Yeah.
So
And the sad thing is we shortchange ourselves out of our purpose or potentially what God wants to bless us with because we never find the discipline or the courage to be obedient in this space here.
Because the enemy wants to flag my mind and say, oh, you know what, you're tithing, you're giving. Now look, you could have just, no. I have because I did back here. I walked in obedience back here and I disciplined my life here so I could save and discipline my life the rest of the way through with my finances.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The obedience topic is so big, I think, in our Christian circles. It's really the final command of Jesus, disciple people, teaching them to do all that I have commanded. Yeah. It's not just teaching them all my teachings.
Yeah. That's right.
Or teaching them my theology or teaching them my understanding of God. It's teaching them to do what I've told you to do.
Yeah. And
so there's a doing portion
there is.
that a lot of us will try and circumnavigate in any way that we can. And you brought up a really big one, when it comes to generosity and giving. The amount of excuses I've heard over the years, and I understand for a lot of people it's a process to get to a place where they can do it. The reality is 90% of any church is living paycheck to paycheck.
That's correct.
But that's because they've never disciplined themselves in obedience and in generosity saving. And no matter what your income is, that it's a percentage. It's not an amount. It's a percentage.
That's right.
And so these are rules and rhythms that will help you experience God's blessing in the future.
Yeah, and I think it comes back down to your heart, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's not God doesn't want what's in your hand; He wants what's in your heart. It's part of your heart process. Do you have the heart of God in this area of your life? And a part of that there's a trusting and an obedience to it. When it comes to our finances, when it comes to any kind of spiritual disciplines in our life. And it's not that I'm doing this to gain more favor with God. That's the problem. I think most people kind of the rub where it comes to, with certain people. When we ask people or talk to people about giving or something, just I don't know why we off on giving. Maybe because I said something about it, but it's an obedience thing. And so, but I didn't do it to just gain.
Right.
I did it because it's obedience, and I want to walk in that, and God desires that. And he knows that my money can have a hold such on my heart that I can live greedy. But God doesn't want me to live greedy. He wants me to live generously. He's calling all of us to live generously with our life. And if I'm withholding back here, I'll withhold everywhere else in my life.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I've got time for maybe just a couple more things, but when it comes to, back to sort of the Jesus's first miracle, you talked about obedience and other things as well. Is there anything you feel like you didn't get to say, or something we can dive into a little bit deeper as we sort of as we explore this whole story? There's lots of different things we could pull out, but is there anything you just feel like, man, when it comes to this story, this is what I want people to see. There's the obedience portion.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, I touched on it just a little bit, but I think in a lot of ways, I've felt it for them recently, just praying and feeling the frustration that people have right now in their life. And what I mean by that is some of the frustration that they have is their own doing, but at the same time, I feel that in the room. People are frustrated because the miracle hasn't happened yet, or the miracle, they're still needing a miracle, and they're believing, they're praying, all those things, and yet, they haven't seen the manifestation of that take place in their life. So I feel for them, the weightiness of that, and that people feel like, okay, God, where are you in this? Where are you? And I know this is not I never want to think of it as a quick fix of something, that what God's doing, because I know God uses situations in our life as well to kind of shape, mold our life, develop our faith, things like that, or to develop the perseverance in our life, all of that James even talks about, right? Yeah. When we face trials and troubles of various kinds, that it's there to develop our faith and perseverance. But I do feel the frustration of that in our church. I can't speak of any other churches. I only speak of ours, but just the frustration of that, where people are with it. And I just, my prayer is that they just come to the place of absolute surrender, right, of the situation in their life, because I'm feeling it. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling that for them. Mm-hmm. And it's super weighty. It's been really weighty. It's something I've been really praying on, that they're just, for people to have that, either just a greater understanding of what God's doing in that moment, yeah, or to get their eyes off of the situation and just dialed into Him. Mm-hmm. That way. I know a lot of times our mountains seem a lot smaller when we're focused on Jesus instead of the mountain, Yeah. And I think when we're focused on Jesus instead of the mountain, we're just telling the world and the mountain how big our God is, and how small that is really compared to Him. And it's just leaning into that part. I think that message that you brought that first week, and it wasn't even part of the series, but I felt like it was just kind of a kickoff to the series, because it is a big component of seeing God work on our behalf. Yeah. And hearing the voice of God and leaning in and learning from it. Mm-hmm. He says, take my yoke, take my way of life upon you, learn from me. Mm-hmm. We can't learn from Him if we're not leaning into Him. Yeah. So I think that those are the weighty things that I really didn't talk about too much, because I'm just trying to get through the message to get to the final point of it, just kind of bring it home. But for me, it's been very weighty, because I see that, when you're standing on stage, this, John, you can see the people, you feel it in the room, that you can see they're tired. They are so tired. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just the wrestling match of their soul, because their soul is just it's so tired, Yeah. And the only place we can find rest for our souls is really Him. And I'm not seeing that. Like, I see people are wrestling, and struggling.
Yeah. It's Jesus's source of inspiration, power. Yeah. He goes back to it. I mean, again and again, silence and solitude, not isolation. Yeah. He still has people around him. He has community, he has church, he has friends, he has disciples.
I mean, the worst thing we could be is alone.
Yeah. He's at the wedding for 7 days straight. Like that's not what I'm talking about.
That's right.
It's the moments of intentional withdrawing in order to find the source. And you challenge the church pretty well. Like, hey, we all talk about wanting to find rest and hearing the voice of God, but like, are you doing it?
I did. You just straight up right out of the gate, didn't I? I think it's right out of the gate.
Yeah, pretty much. Almost, yeah. I mixed the two services together, but you just said, look, like, we can talk about this till the cows come home, but until there's an act of obedience, until there's a stepping out in faith and modeling your life after Jesus, you're just back on that hamster wheel again, or you live in perpetual states of frustration and angst.
That's weighty, man.
Yeah.
It's weighty just looking at them, and just, it's almost like that when Jesus looked upon the multitudes, and it was like sheep without a shepherd, and it's like, well, we're here to shepherd. Yeah. But sometimes sheep can be stubborn.
And for Jesus, he cried about it, Like, oh Israel, you who scorned the prophets, and he even says, you won't see me again until you declare. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Oh my gosh, it's weighty though.
And so he's frustrated as well, because people are going to make their own decisions at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to live by them. Like
that's right.
You're in so much more control of your life and your joy, and you can't outsource that or blame anybody else for it.
That's right.
You have to make those decisions.
That's right. Yeah, and again, it's just going back to that, what we talked about earlier, is just that obedience fact, because, man, you challenged them to do, well, are you doing it?
Yeah.
Are you doing the silence and solitude this week? How'd you do with that this week? Did you even carve out 10 minutes in one day to do it?
Right.
Crickets. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
It's just so like, the frustrations of a pastor podcast. That's what this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and it's not that they have to say it out loud, but you can just see it.
Sure.
And feel it.
You see the fidgeting and the eyes go down to the ground and
and sense,
don't look at me.
Just sense it.
Yeah.
In the room, But yeah, I mean, I think in all of this, when we're looking at the miracles of Jesus, at the end of the day, one of the things that I said is just expect the best.
Yes.
He saved the best till last. As that verse, I believe is verse 10 in John, where the master of ceremony is like, listen, man, we usually keep this at the beginning of the, and we give them the bad stuff in the middle, but we save the best wine till last.
Right.
And I just feel like it's just a picture for me in my mind. And listen, that I'm taking, don't hold me to this. I just feel like this is something God spoke in my heart about it, that it's not that he's saving, the best is yet to come in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say the same thing.
Your past is not your best.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Back here is not, no. It's the best is yet to come.
Yeah. It's so true. I don't think that's taking liberty with scripture.
Yeah.
I think that's the clear imagery that life is meant to get better and better as you mature and get closer to God.
Yeah.
Like people in their 30s, 40s, I wish I was 20. No, you don't.
No.
You don't wish you had those insecurities. You don't wish you had no money again.
That's
you don't wish you had to go back to college. Like you've fantasized it. Like where you are right now is the best portion of your life and it will keep getting better.
Yeah.
Like believe God for that.
I think the enemy wrecks us with that.
Yeah.
We when we talk about the past, we always talk about something negative, like it's terrible. But a lot of times we go to the past because we thought that was our best days and our best days are behind us, and it's not. You may have some aches and pains today that you didn't have when you're 20s, but listen, trust me, the best is yet to come, in your life.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have a little creakiness to themselves when you get a little older.
It's an excuse just to sit down and read a book. That's better than running around in defenses or doing whatever dumb 20-year-olds do.
There's so much ahead of you that God has for your life. And I think that's where, again, that's where the enemy kind of besets us, that the best is behind us, and it's not. The best is yet to come. Save the best till now.
Yeah.
So
there we go. That's a good word to end on.
That's a good one.
Hopefully that's encouraging to some people.
Well, John, you want to end us out?
Yeah, I can end this out. Thank you so much. Great message. We'll be doing a whole series on this, so we'll be on this for a little while. Feel free to tune in. You can join us live. You can go onto our website. If you could hit a like on this, if you're on YouTube, or subscribe as well to the channel, whatever platform you're watching this on. Otherwise, I pray that you have a blessed day, and I hope that this in some way enriched your life.